Hello everyone, Prime here, and Faulkner recently released some new armor sets that they're going to be releasing with the Marching Fire update, the Season 8 update. So today we're going to be going over the new armor, some lore behind it, or at least for some of the pieces, for the Samurai and Viking characters. Now I'm probably going to stick to the 4 original cast members for each faction, but we'll probably maybe do the DLC characters as well, let's see. And so first up we're going to be talking about the masks of the samurai characters. Men-yoroi is an encompassing name for many of the types of samurai facial armors and masks that we can see in the game and actually historically. They may cover the entire face or part of the face, and, of course, provide a decent level of protection depending on the material that they're made out of. The specific material could range from iron to leather, or even both, depending on what mask or facial armor we're talking about. Now, of course, some weapons, it's not going to matter too much what type of armor you have, what material it's made out of, because against a kanabo that's supposed to be sort of anti-armor in a sense, you're going to feel pain no matter what. Not saying that being hit by a weapon, even if you have armor, wouldn't allow you to feel some sort of force, some sort of impact or pain, but I've never worn armor before, so I can't really tell you from first-hand experience. Thanks, Scylla. What I can say, though, is that these masks were usually secured by an origuki, or odome, on the wearer's chin, and the masks themselves could sport anything that you see in the masks that you can unlock in the game, like mustaches for the Kensei, teeth for the Kensei and Shugoki, flexible noses, things like that. So, in other words, a lot of the masks that you see in-game, fairly historically accurate. Some men-yoroi even included a little drainage hole for sweat. That's an extra bit of trivia knowledge that you didn't necessarily need to know, but probably disturbed you, so you're welcome for that. Now getting into some of the variations, we have Somen, which covered the entire face. So these are masks that we can see. The Orochi has one of these. The Kensei, all of his new armors, the facial portions of them all use a Somen design, and you can see that it has some sort of devilish sort of character on it. The reason for the devilish character in samurai masks was to, partially unbalance the enemy a bit. Not just because you see a scary demon-looking creature coming at you on the battlefield, but also because you can't see the face behind it, and whether it's afraid of you or not, or what emotions it's showing, or if it's fearless in battle, there's an ambiguity there. So if the face behind it was frightened, you wouldn't be able to tell, and it would be charging at you anyway, and it would be a scary monster, and all of that stuff. So covering your entire face has that advantage. Also doesn't make identification very easy either. Then we have the menpo, which covered less of the face, but included the nose and chin. And the hanbo or hanpo protected the lower face. Now, of course, these are the variations of masks. You've got the Shugoki there, most likely being a hanbo or hanpo, and the menpo probably falling into Orochi's category, because it seems to be covering more of his face than Shugoki's at least. And though Orochi generally is obviously a bit better armored than Shugoki, but Now, Kensei is wearing an obi sash on his back, or apparently that's what that rope-looking thing is called. Apparently it's an obi, so it might not necessarily be an obi sash, but, obi. And as for the Nobushi, we can see that she has a helmet, but no facial protection. Now, the helmet or hat that she's wearing might have been called a war hat or a camp hat, or given the name akasa, the kasa is like an umbrella term for that sort of hat. And specifically Nobushi's category of hat probably would have been called a jingasa. As fighting died down during the Sengoku period, it became more of a decorative piece of armor rather than a combat-ready piece of armor. Not saying that it wouldn't have been worthless in a fight, but, that was less of its purpose. And before that period, of course, it was still a hat for warriors, so it, of course, did the job of protecting the wearer's head. Now, as for the face paint, lighter skin tones were thought to connote beauty for a long time in Japan's history. The lighter the face, the more beautiful the person would have been considered, most likely, so you can understand why women would have applied makeup to their faces, or, the certain white powder. This started happening during the Nara period, and it was a trend that kind of just stuck for a very long time. Hence why we can see Nobushi coloring her face white, and apparently that's also going to be part of player expression. I don't think some characters have face paint, right? I think Highlander and probably Shaman, you can have some sort of face paint on them and customize that a little. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a thing, right? So specifically, the white powder that would have been applied to the faces of these women was called oshiroi, and Even today, it's still used by geisha actors, so that's just a nice part of the culture that survived even to the modern day, I suppose. You know, one thing I do wonder about the makeup is if there are any health risks that you'd have to consider with it, because there tends to be those sort of drawbacks with these sorts of things, but I didn't really look into that too much, so let me know if you actually know if there are any significant health risks to using this Oshiroi makeup, and if there isn't, well, then more power to you. All benefits and no risk, I suppose. Or I suppose in the case of the game, all benefits, because it's not like Nobushi would die from some sort of poisoning if there was that sort of deal with this makeup. Also, some of the variations of Nobushi's new armor feature some sort of mask around the neck. One of the masks is a kitsune, a fox, who in Japanese folklore had the ability to shapeshift, and, you know, quite special beings. So there's that extra bit of trivia for you. So moving back to the Kensei, we're going to be focusing on the floral patterns for the second design and the hidden meanings behind the flowers that of course link to the Kensei's character. You know, based off of what the wiki says and what the trailers say about him, you know, there's a lot of themes of sort of pride, honor, duty, victory, and sort of the Kensei's this sort of protector and upholder of the sort of samurai values. First flower that we have behind that is the Tsubaki, Camellia. Its meaning is humility and discretion, but also perfect love. But that first meaning, humility, can sort of help you to attain victory because, as the art of war will tell you, know your enemy and know yourself, and you'll not feel the result of 100 battles. No, I'm not just quoting Xing Chen as well. But, you know, if you know your own weaknesses, then you will be able to know what you can and can't do, and you'll be able to chase the victories that you know you can sort of get. Next up, we have Sakura, cherry blossom, meaning accomplishment, beauty of heart. Accomplishment, tying into victory there, but also beauty of heart. I guess that also means staying true to yourself and, well, again, you know, that pride, honor thing, but again, also upholding samurai values as well. And we have Ume, Japanese apricot, meaning elegance, faithfulness, and pure heart. Again, going back to the sort of duty, honor, pride, and all of that sort of thing. And then we have Siren, the lotus, far from the one you love, which I suppose isn't necessarily just relevant to the Kensei, but relevant to any one of these fighters, you know, in the sense that they're not just fighting for themselves or just their country, but also fighting for their family and the things that they love, right? So I guess you could link that to any one, but those little flowers that I thought looked similar to the real flowers that also, you know, have meaning to the Kensei himself. So yeah. Now, next up, we're talking about the Shugoki, specifically his skulls, because we already went over his mask and facial armor and gear and all of that stuff. So, skulls in Japanese culture represent the natural cycle of life, as opposed to death being what it would be in a lot of cultures. And this idea that the greatest thing a man can sort of achieve or take is that greatest step, you know, the step beyond, continuing the cycle or completing the cycle in a sense. But also there are these great mythological beasts that were giant skeleton monsters called Gashadokuro, who were created out of the bones of hungry soldiers who were left to die on the battlefield without burial. Pretty edgy, I know, but they had this habit of biting the heads off of travelers and letting their blood spurt everywhere. Yes, I know. But these creatures were said to be indestructible. So, you know, if you're on the battlefield, what is greater symbol than having a beast's skull on your, you know, just around your groin area that, you know, more or less means that you'd be indestructible, or that you're continuing a cycle of life and death. Either way, I'm sure that's got to be quite distracting to an enemy on the battlefield. So, and as we said, you know, part of the reason why people wear masks, of course, there are plenty of reasons, and I'm sure some of the samurai just wore them just following trends is always a thing, I'm guessing. Skulls probably had that practical usage as well. Or maybe they're just trophies for the Shugoki, just for, you know, like a personal thing, like your hair is, you know, styling your hair and getting it to look a certain way. That sort of thing, I guess. Then again, is hair really a trophy? I suppose that's a question for another day. But moving on to the Orochi, the last samurai here, his armor is actually early concept armor for the Orochi himself that wasn't actually added into the game, but to be honest, I don't really like to say this. The chest gear is fairly nice. It's gear that I've always wanted ever since I saw it, but everything else about the Orochi just seems kind of meh. It seems like he got the least love as far as the samurai characters are concerned. I'm not saying that it's not great that the devs put in this armor and all, but I felt like they could have probably just included the armor set anyways, or another time, right? Instead of putting it here when they're being a lot more creative with the rest of the samurai. So yeah, the Orochi definitely drew the short lot. But moving on to the Vikings for the second half of the video here, we have the... Alright, so we're going to end the video here. I could have maybe added the DLC hero characters, but I decided not to, and I'm not sure if you guys would even be interested in that, but I was going to also include the Vikings in this video as well, not just solely cover the samurai, but I didn't realize how much I was actually talking about the samurai, and I actually did a lot of research for the samurai, and then compared to the Vikings, I barely even have half of a page of notes for the Vikings. So yeah, I'm not really doing them justice if I continue the video and talk about what little I have information I've got for them. So I'm going to do a bit more research for them and do them a video that will do them justice instead of what I can do now. So we're going to end it here. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and leave a like, and of course, subscribe to the channel for more content just like this, and tell me which of the samurai armor sets is your favorite of the new ones. You can even include the DLC if we didn't talk about so that's the Aramushu and the Ninja Shinobi, that was it. And yeah, so let me know. For me, I think probably Kensei. Maybe an Ibushi, probably Kensei, I think, for me. But yeah, until the next video, have a very good day. I've been Prime, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.